Okay, so as agreed, Kerianne, this part of the session is now being recorded, and we're going to use this to run through and review our problem-solving assignment and what you've done. So if we could do what I can ask you to do, Kerianne, if you could just read through your answers, if possible.
Yeah.
And then I can give you feedback on that, and we can expand on any points if necessary as well.
Yeah. So question 1, talk through a problem solving technique you have used to solve a problem. So at site, we are currently faced with the problem of using one of our activity training areas as an area to host team games. This limits potential revenue as we can run one or the other. Using the idea model, I have identified this problem. I have then gone on to develop a business proposal to complete some groundworks to create a new designated space for hosting our team games. I am now in the execution phase, and I am answering and asking questions to different departments to ensure the right outcome is made. During execution phase, I have also found myself assess the proposal and constantly re-evaluating my SWOT analysis to ensure that our resources are going in the correct direction.
Yeah, excellent. So again, that really talks through a problem that's been identified, what you're doing about it, the approach that you've taken, and how you're working through that, and how you're reflecting on it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really, really good. The next one is talk through a decision-making technique that you've used to make a decision. So for that, I'd say if we think about the approach you take to decision making, Kerianne.
Mm-hmm.
So when you've got a decision to make, how do you go about that? Do you try and gather as much evidence as possible, or gather feedback from other people in order to make a more informed decision? Do you use your experience?
Yeah, so I mean, yesterday we were literally making the decision on who to hire as a senior instructor and kind of promote. So we did look at all the different factors. So their experience, we got them to go through 3 stages of kind of an interview. So we were looking at every single stage of that to see kind of how they compare against each other, as well as kind of how they stand out themselves. Just kind of their attitude towards the job, because that says a lot if they want a promotion. So kind of thinking about all those factors, and particularly the kind of, we did like online interviews just to hear their responses, kind of helped us make that decision.
Okay, excellent. So that covers that quite nicely in terms of a decision-making technique that you've used to make a decision. There is a decision-making technique called a fishbone method, and the fishbone method basically breaks down a problem, or the elements of a problem that you need to solve, which is exactly what you've just described. So a decision-making technique can be used. So your aim is to hire the right person for the job as a result of doing the interviews. So at the start of the method, you might think about all of these elements. So if you think about a fishbone, and all the bones represent an element of the process from start to finish. That's basically what it represents. So using the fishbone method, you can think about the elements or the tasks that it's going to take for you to come to that decision. Now, the process that you used was to go through, people might have sent you their CVs in the first place. As per the application process. You might have then looked through those and created a short list, and then moved on to the next phase of the problem, which was to then take, not a problem, but next phase of the task was to then move forward with the short list of people that would then have Teams interviews. You would then look at the kind of answers that they would give. You know, are they going to be the right fit? So often, as we said before, your CV will often get you an interview in the first place, but thereafter, it's really, businesses are looking at, is this person going to, are they kind of go-8 material? Are they going to fit the dynamic of the team? Are they going to fit into the kind of what we're looking for? So it's more to do with personality and character rather than kind of skill set at that point, because you know that they've got the skill set, because otherwise they wouldn't be having the interview in the first place. So it's really breaking down a process and deciding, what is each element of the process that we need to cover. And in that recruitment process, that's what you used. And then as a result of that, you might have had a meeting afterwards and said, well, I like this person, and somebody else might have said, I like the same person. They, demonstrated good knowledge or the attributes that we would need, etc. And then you would make a decision about, how do we move forward from there? Are we going to offer them the job? Are we going to have second interviews or whatever that might be? So the fishbone method is quite a useful one because it's quite flexible in its adaptation. And that's one that you could.
Yeah, I was looking at the diagram, but I think I was just maybe overcomplicating about kind of what to put on each section.
Yeah.
So it's like, so maybe if I just like draw one out for that example, then it will just kind of help me understand it. But
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I might do that.
And look, it doesn't need to be too extensive either. It can be it can be quite basic in its process, as long as it allows you to show, right, my decision making processes can now allow me to start here and I want to end up at here. The aim is that we're going to employ someone. How am I going to get there? So the fishbone method basically becomes a strategy of how you're going to do that, by breaking each part down. Okay. Discuss a recent change within your organisation. In what ways was your approach to the change adaptive and positive? So you could talk through that for me, Kerianne, if possible.
Yeah. So we changed our safety system equipment at one of our locations.
Yeah.
I was positive about the change. It brought on a lot of benefits. I adapted my schedule to personally go to our construction team, who had a mock-up of the system built, so I could learn more and see the equipment in motion and have a better understanding of it before it was implemented at our site. I designated a lot of my time after that building policies and procedures ready for the kit to be installed.
Yeah, excellent. So you've shown a really proactive approach, a really positive reaction and response to this new this change in safety equipment. And you were positive, as you say, you were positive about the benefits, and probably that got communicated. So the right people were probably involved, like yourself, in communicating to the rest of the staff. Well, this is the reason why we've made the change. We're going to reinforce it. So if we go back to what was the model? It might have been in your team building assignment, where we've got a I can't remember. It's Lewin's change model, where we think about you unfreeze what's in place at the moment, you reinforce what's now been decided with communication and action, and then you refreeze. So that becomes the new normal.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So PS3, give an example of when you've shown accountability for personal objectives.
So I submitted a business proposal, and I'm now accountable to answer all the questions in relation to that and gather more information and research when required. Yep,
excellent. So that's how you've shown you're accountable for making sure you're responsible and you're knowledgeable about these certain things. So you're able to then pass that on to the rest of the staff. Another area of that I'd made a note of, but you would actually go on to cover it in PS7, was that personal objectives would be like the SWOT analysis that you conducted, that you then created a personal development plan on the back of. But again, you've mentioned that in a later question, which is really good. Give an example of when you've shown accountability for your team's objectives.
If we have an audit which has resulted in action points which are related to my job role and responsibilities, for example, on an audit, a member of staff did not open the site according to our operational procedures. This was a mistake rather than a misconduct. However, it showed that when I need to have a presence during the operational day, so I know our standards are staying high.
That's it, and absolutely. Probably on the back of that, you might have then addressed that with that member of staff and made a decision. Do we need retraining on this? Was it literally just one of those things, a one-off?
Yeah.
but can they demonstrate competency? So to, fill you with confidence to make sure that it's not going to happen again, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. PS4, describe a recent challenging situation and in what ways did you show you were resilient in dealing with the situation? So I read through this, Kerianne, and yeah, I tried to put myself in your position, and I felt myself getting frustrated reading through it. But anyway, I'll let you read through it.
Yeah, so this decision has kind of just been made, but I kind of saw it happening. So a promotion decision has been made despite my input and communications, which suggested it wasn't the right fit. However, I accepted and trust the decision made, and I will be training the employee and giving them my time to ensure they not only feel a part of the team, but also to ensure they are brought up to the correct level of training and understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So despite that being probably quite a frustrating experience, having not been involved within the decision-making process when you probably should have been, or not as much as you feel you should have been, you maintained a great deal of professionalism within that, and your reaction to that was again a positive one, even though it was something frustrating from a personal point of view. Obviously that wasn't going to let you affect your ability to you weren't going to let it affect culture of the business, and we've spoken about that before in organization culture and the importance of that, particularly from yourself being an authoritative figure, a leadership figure, and a role model within the business. That was really, really key that you remained and were able to demonstrate that professionalism throughout, and agility and flexibility to the needs of the business in that situation where you think, right, this has happened now, let's make the best of it, let's move forward with how we need to, and make sure that that person gets the best possible start to their new role.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one, how you've adapted your approach and that of your team to face operational change and challenges.
Email Rob. Yeah, you'll have to put them all in. You won't be able to put them in again until they're deleted. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So I've not only been a positive reinforcer of the changes, but I also help others understand the change, as I believe without understanding why, a lot of employees wouldn't accept a change.
That's it. So these, just to confirm, Kerianne, so these changes, were these the referring to the new equipment? Again, it was brought in, or is this a generalization?
We changed our clocking in and clocking out system. So managers used to do it for staff, but then we've now got an app where they have to do it themselves.
Yeah.
So we found a lot of barriers for them kind of using the app, especially because of signal and Wi-Fi issues.
Yeah.
It just created a bit of a staggered response of people liking it because they then had to react themselves to clocking in and out. But helping them kind of understand why, maybe kind of helped bridge that frustration and help them kind of accept it.
Yeah, I think you're right, particularly with operations and processes and things like that. I think it's one thing kind of saying to somebody, right, this is how we're doing it from now on. Why? Well, just don't worry about that, just do it. If you explain the why behind the process, it allows them to place value upon it, almost, and see the value in it. Okay, this is the reason why we're doing it. It's to give us more accountability and responsibility for our timekeeping, maybe. So that's the reason why it's been done. So okay, I can now appreciate the reason why it's been done, so I'll make sure that I do it. So I think you're right. Rather than just saying, make sure you're doing this, don't worry about why, just make sure you're doing it. It's it kind of again, if we look back at kind of management change theories, like Lewin's change model, or like Kotter's 8-step process, a big part of that is a communication and getting the right people involved and having really clear communication on why these changes are happening. So that's a really good example. Okay. Next is give an example of when you have had to escalate an issue when facing change and or a challenge.
So once it was decided we were changing safety systems, it was very much just dropped on us with little notice. I had to gather all information and read new manuals. I created a list of tasks to complete and raised an issue of our disclaimers. Every customer must complete a disclaimer to ensure they understand the risks of the activity. Unfortunately, with this new system, it meant our site needed a different disclaimer to all other sites. As customers fill this out prior to arrival, I raise this concern immediately for our departments to action.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is, it wasn't as simple as just simply using your generic paperwork from maybe another Go Ape site or a template that you've got on the website somewhere. It had to be quite specific to site, which is good in one respect because it means that it's absolutely applying to your needs of the business and the needs of that particular site. So a little bit like an example of a health and safety policy, for example. So generally, Go Ape are going to have a health and safety policy. However, it's then going to be tailored to site and made site specific. So that was quite a good example. And the fact that you had to move quite quickly with that as well, I would imagine, to stay compliant with kind of HR and corporate responsibility as well.
Yeah, it's because we have to in order to change those, we have to also get the legal team involved. It's not just kind of changing the word and sending it back to us.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure all the legal wording is correct. So it had to go through a few more stages for it to actually come back. So yeah, it was important to get it done.
Excellent. And that refers back a little bit to organisation governance that we did previously, Kerianne, as well. So when you talk about the importance of remaining compliant to corporate, financial, and legal responsibility and the importance of that. So that very much kind of meets that. Okay, so moving on. Where are we? Number 6. Describe a time when you've presented a strategy to implement operational or team plans.
So I spoke to the management team and discussed that every morning the duty manager must be looking ahead 1 week on our booking system. This was to ensure we were opening sessions early and allowing customers to book rather than creating frustration on our website when there is nothing available.
Yep.
It's helped us reach our long-term goals and in turn became a more efficient site.
Yeah, excellent. So that was the plan. So the aim or objective was to become a more efficient site, to streamline, and in order to do so, you streamline that process of doing that. That was the tactics that you used effectively. Explain how you managed resources as part of this strategy.
So by ensuring duty managers were opening the sessions early, we know as a pattern of customer bookings, this is likely to increase our pre-booked customers, which makes up the majority of our customers. By using this strategy to boost our customer numbers, it meant we had more customer revenue per employee. This alone helps to improve efficiency and gross margins, as we then were making the most of our staffing.
Yeah, again, so you were streamlining the whole process and making it more cost effective, making you a more efficient, more productive site. Excellent. Okay, next one, Kerianne, was so moving on to PS7. Okay, and this is give an example of when you've identified a challenge. Now, for that, you could use the examples in PS5, PS6, or you could use the example back in PS1 as well. So you can use the same example because you expand on those on your answers within those to say how you've identified a challenge and what you've done about it. So you can almost copy and paste your answer from that.
Okay, yeah, I think it was just knowing that one's worded as a problem and one's worded as a challenge, whereas realistically sometimes those two words very much sit quite close together. So
yeah.
Which is why I was a bit hesitant in answering it.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. I've not thought of it like that. Yeah, that's right. If you replace the word there with the word challenge with problem, then it's basically exactly the same as one of the previous ones. But it is right in that it's I guess it's the definition is something that you need to overcome and how you went about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you've done that very well in your answers to the previous one. So
Yeah.
it will be covering the same piece of criteria when I sign
Okay.
it off. So there's no reason you can't use the same example again.
Okay.
Give an example of when you responded positively and proactively to feedback from your team and others to make delivery and business decisions.
So when I first became activities manager, I gathered some 360 feedback. One of my weaknesses showed as my technical abilities. I've proactively since then become confident in our company's platforms, and from that have encouraged and helped others understand them more.
Yeah, excellent. Again, you've understood and identified what that was and what you've done about it with a practical example. Okay, next is give an example of when you have adapted your plans and managed a change to identify business solutions. So again, what did I write down for this?
I think it was like the last bit that I think it's because it's so, like 3 separate things. I think it was the
Yeah,
last bit that was like to identify a business solution when it's you're already managing a change. I don't know. I think it's
identify business solutions. Give an example of when you've adapted your plans and managed to change to identify business solutions. So I'd think about how you might have worked kind of creatively or innovatively to try and meet business solutions. Give an example of when you've adapted your plans. Yeah.
because I mean, adapting my plans to
It
manage a
is. So
change,
this is
that's
quite
a
a
question I
similar
could do, but
this is quite a similar question to one that you got, the one that is on a team building and development assignment. So how do you manage change to meet company objectives? Let's have a look at your team building assignment. Yeah, so you've got to give an example of when you adapted your approach to accommodate the needs of team members. What approach to team building do you use? Yeah. So in team building 3, Kerianne, the question is, give an example of when you've managed change to deliver organisational objectives. I think that's more or less the same question. It's just worded slightly differently.
yeah.
And you put operational changes to be communicated to staff clearly and allow time to answer any questions. I then make myself more accessible for the day to be around supporting them as they make the change, but also letting them see you follow through on change to help them accept it and get on board with the change. Yeah, I'd use exactly the same answer.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you have your team building assignment, Kerianne? If not, I was gonna send you your portfolio of evidence after today's session anyway, so you have it.
Yeah, I should do.
Otherwise, let me.
Is that what it was? Oh, building a high performance team assignment.
It will be. So I think it's the third one: team building and development.
Should have it somewhere, but no, I'm not sure.
Is it?
I can probably go into Bud and get it.
There it is. Okay. I've just added that there, Kerianne. So
Yeah.
I'll save this version and I'll email it back to you.
Okay, thanks.
Because then I think the only one that's missing now will be the decision-making technique, so the fishbone answer.
Yeah.
And then that's it. Then you can upload that to Bud once that's done.
Okay.
Okay, where were we? PS8. Explain the approach you have taken to manage stakeholder relationships. You must give an example.
I have improved my communications with our sites. We have a company-wide communication channel, and if someone asks for help, if I can assist them, I do. This can be helping them find documents, giving them internal contact information to help them solve their problem, or possibly by sending them items they need that are out of stock.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've already created stakeholder relationships by building relationships with them, developing rapport, finding out how they operate, liaising with them, finding out how each other operates, and so you can deliver the best service possible. And then to manage that and monitor it ongoing is exactly as you said. So using ongoing communication, are we still meeting the needs of the clients? Are we still meeting the site owners, that our operations still fit for purpose? All of this kind of stuff. Feedback as well. I guess I think you mentioned before that you request feedback from customers, or you might look at kind of customer reviews on your website, and you might use that as feedback as well. That's quite a good way to kind of manage stakeholder relationships, to get that feedback from them as well.
Okay.
Next one, explain the approach you have taken to manage customer relationships.
I've personally taken control of our Google account and postings. We've found this a crucial platform for communicating with the public, customers, and potential customers.
Yeah. That's it. So digital communication through your website. And you mentioned you do all of that in-house, Kerianne, I think you mentioned before.
Yeah, so we've got a social media kind of and like marketing team, but they don't have the capacity to kind of do everyone's social media, so we do it kind of in-house at site level.
Excellent. So again, I think we mentioned before in previous discussions that really allows you to illustrate the kind of culture and kind of what people can expect from coming to your site. Because I guess the guide fundamentals of what people should, the kind of experience people should have when they come to a site, are more or less the same throughout, no matter what site they go to. But for certain sites, you want to kind of make it your own. You're going to have a very specific culture within that, within the staff, within the team, within the skill sets, what you're able to offer. So that would be really useful in that, through social media and through pictures and how you word things and the language that you use on the site, you can kind of really give people an insight into what they can expect and the kind of experience they can have coming to your site as opposed to another Go8 site.
Yeah.
Okay. In what ways have you used emotional intelligence to manage stakeholder and customer relationships? So emotional intelligence, this is kind of going back to start of course, communication, team building, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I've used emotional intelligence to manage customer relationships, particularly when a customer has a complaint. I ensure that my body language, tone, and emotions relay empathy to the customer, and by doing that, come to an understanding together.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. There's a lot of that now with kind of training in place for emotional intelligence, and being able to read a room.
Yeah.
And being able to think, well, this is based on previous experience, this is the approach I'm going to use. Or sometimes you don't have the benefit of previous experience, so
Yeah.
you literally need to kind of just go by what's in front of you. Situational management. Okay. Next, Kerianne, can you give an example of when you have used a conflict management technique to manage a conflict with a stakeholder or customer relationship?
When I work with our events teams, as employees who do not work at site level, do not understand a lot of our limitations and complications that come with large bookings, I spoke directly with our site's events organizer, and we discussed specific limitations we have and found a compromise to ensure we are still meeting the needs of our customers, but also helping site run the events smoothly.
Yeah, excellent. So you very much used a collaboration technique to liaise with other people, the right people involved, to come to a decision. What's going to be best for us as a site. So this is what you want us to do. We can't quite meet that, but let's meet somewhere in the middle and kind of mediate and say this is what we're going to do to go forward, going forward. Excellent. PS9, please give an example of when you have worked in each of the following ways to seek a solution to business needs.
So creatively designing a new layout for one of our cabins, which improves storage and improved appearance to the view of our customers. Innovatively, I proposed moving a Segway exit path to help us not only reduce hazards, but also improve our merchandise selling opportunities. This was implemented and has been very successful. Enterprising, discussing with new employees days in which they are available to complete training. I compile all the information to ensure we are training as many people on the same topic at the same time. This reduces training hours and also allows me more time for other tasks.
Excellent. Okay, and next one, Kerianne, is PS10. So analyse the successes and learning points from a period of change that your organisation has experienced.
We had a new clocking in and out system put in place. This over time has become more successful as people got used to using the new app. As a company, we trialed it for approximately kind of 3 months before actually using that data as our kind of logging hours. The change did bring on a lot of complications. We are rural locations, signal and Wi-Fi aren't the strongest. It actually ended up delaying employees starting and working and leaving work. Over time of struggling with the new system, we allowed staff the use of Wi-Fi. This could have been implemented sooner. However, we needed input from our IT department first. A learning for the company as a whole would be to think not only of those in city locations and offices, but those with minimal technical resources, and consider and try to work out those weaknesses before going live.
Yeah, excellent. That's it. So it's really much one of these where it's kind of you put a plan in place and it was lesson learned as a result, and you learn from that.
Yeah, it was good because we did like a trial stage for so long.
Yeah.
Which helped people get used to it, and it helped us work out those lumps and bumps. But
yeah,
as staff members trying to use it while there's those hiccups along the way just made it a bit of a harder change to get used to.
Yeah, I think that was that's a good move, isn't it, to have a like a mock run through or a mock period of and as you say, it allows staff to get used to it, to work out any kind of bumps in the road that you'd need to get through. And then the last question, Kerianne, will be describe how you think the team leader role enables the team to understand success. So from that perspective, I think about the kind of attributes that you think a leader should have. So you being a role model, the kind of attributes you have, the kind of managers or leaders that you might have had or looked up to in the past? What personalities or character traits or strengths did they have to be able to kind of motivate and inspire you as a team member? So I'd think about things about, again, being a role model, being a brand advocate, an ambassador for the brand, being somebody who drives and implements culture, being a leader, a coach, and a mentor, being able to support the team with anything that they need, being a successful communicator, being positive, proactive, and professional. And ultimately, in terms of success, so it's how it, because that's the term that it uses, understanding success. So it's being able to, the team being able to understand what it is that the company is about and what it's trying to achieve. So its values and its goals and objectives, and being able to see that in how you demonstrate your everyday behaviours within the job role.
Okay.
I would say so. That's how I would would read the question, because it's quite an expansive question. Describe how you think team leader role enables the team to understand success. So that's how I would answer it. So how you feel you can best portray the company values in your everyday behaviours and attitude towards the job role. So all of those things that I mentioned, as I say, so being a role model, being an ambassador for the brand, being supportive, being a mentor, being a good communicator, ultimately being kind of positive, professional, things like work ethic, presentation, what's the other one I'm trying to think of? Punctuality, things like that, turning up to work, 10 minutes before your shift starts to make sure you can turn up on time. That kind of thing. So it shows what how success can be measured, or how it can be delivered effectively. So that would be how I would answer that. But with all of that afterwards, so evidence to be collected. So we've spoken about your personal development plan. We've spoken about a time management tool. Disruption log is fine. Evidence of promoting inclusion, evidence of seeking feedback, evidence of how your performance has improved based on feedback from others. We cover that through SWOT 360. So all of that is covered.
Okay.
So it's only that question at the end, Kerianne, and the one right at the start with the fishbone. It's just those two.
Okay.
So that covers everything quite nicely. So with that in mind, I'm gonna pause this recording.